Dave Connolly has a marvelous 3-rail O-scale layout in the basement of his home. Like a lot of us, Dave got started with Lionel as a kid.
I started probably like with everyone, with a Lionel ZW, like right in the middle of the layout. And found out I could probably have cooked a sandwich on the thing one day because it was just getting, and I was actually searching for a right-of-way power supply and stumbled upon an ad in OGR back then of Davis Electronics. The next day I called her back, and I can honestly say it's still on the layout. It's a good size layout, and that's all I use for power.
After being out of the hobby for a few years, something got him back into the hobby a few years ago.
My wife wanted a train to go around the tree, and I says, don't run out and buy one. I've got them up in my attic back at home. And we went around the tree, and next thing in the other house, I started building a basement layout, and probably did everything wrong. There was no internet back then on how to do things, and eventually the hobby started to expand. There was, brass engines now available, scale rolling stock, and when we bought this house, I was looking for a big basement. Just started building, and I just kind of doodled on a piece of paper and would come down and stare at it and find out, well, that's not going to work, or it doesn't fit, and just kept retweaking it. And I started out with just a basic horseshoe plan, and then it just kept expanding and growing and to what it is now.
Dave was an early adopter of electronic technology on his layout.
Reading Model Railroad, a lot of it was cab control with toggle switches. And I started doing that, and even though I still only have one mainline loop, it just didn't work that well. It was confusing to have someone else to teach them to run it. And then Alltrol made a throttle that you could plug in and unplug and take it with you. And I had stations all around the layout, and I wanted to get into operations, and it was still kind of confusing because you still had to throw toggle switches for the different blocks, and command control just made it so much easier. People come over to run trains, you didn't have to educate them on how to throw toggle switches or what to do. You just hand them the remote and they're off and running. Who thought you'd be running trains with your phone now, a few years ago? I haven't quite got into that yet. I'm not a phone person, but yeah, the hobby just constantly changes. When I think of 25 years ago of what layouts looked like that was state of the art, and compared to the things you see today, and the it's just unbelievable how far the hobby's come.
Yes, the hobby has come a long way, and the new technology really enhances the experience. Like a lot of 3-railers, Dave runs DCS, TMCC, and Legacy on the railroad, and they all work fine together. But unlike most 3-railers who enjoy running shiny, spotless trains that look brand new, Dave likes the look of weathered engines, rolling stock, and structures. It gives his railroad a real-world appearance not often seen on a 3-rail model railroad. In fact, when we shot this video, the only engines on the layout that were not weathered were these 2 steamers. Dave said he just hasn't gotten around to weathering them yet, but they're scheduled into the shop soon for that work.
I started with buildings. I just like that look, and also it hides a lot of your little flaws or mistakes. You can kind of cover them up. And I had that look, and I was satisfied, and I started doing boxcars. I bought an airbrush and just kind of started, and I liked that look, and I slowly started doing them. And I had all that done, and then I kept looking at the layout, and it just didn't look right because the rails were shiny. Everything was already ballasted, and I ended up painting the rails with an airbrush, and now it all kind of blends together. I just like it because I actually kind of got into started reading books on the real railroading prototype, and I just, you didn't really see anything clean, when you looked at pictures. And I just like that look, and I think it's another fun aspect of the hobby. After you buy it, you take it out of the box, you put it on the layout, that's it. I'm constantly tinkering with the weathering, trying different ideas. It's like a hobby within a hobby. And then I started adding KDs, and that's another hobby within a hobby. Actually, a friend of mine down the Cape, I visited his layout, and he was putting the magnets in. And I saw how well they worked with the delayed coupling, and then I've started doing it now.
Delayed uncoupling is a unique feature of the KD style coupler that can really add to your operation. Here's how it works. KD couplers are much smaller than the large knuckle couplers usually seen on three-rail equipment. But even though they're smaller, they're very strong and won't uncouple under a heavy load. All that's needed to operate a KD coupler is a small uncoupling magnet placed between the rails like this. When a KD coupler moves over the magnet moves the coupler to the open position. The magnet is long enough so that you can spot a joint over the magnet, pull away, and then back into the joint again, all while over the magnet. When you back into the joint while still over the magnet, the couplers will be in this position. This is called the delayed position. With the couplers set in delay, you can shove the car to where you want to uncouple it and stop. Then simply pull away and the car stays where you spotted it. If the couplers are stretched when they go over the magnet, as they would be when pulling a train over it, nothing happens. The couplers stay coupled and the train moves on. Dave likes prototypical operation and has designed his railroad for that kind of running. At its core, it's a single-track main line with passing sidings and industries to serve along the main. There are a couple of loops within the layout that allow for continuous running, but basically this is Dave's railroad. Trains are built at the east end of the railroad here at Grand Junction, which is also the interchange point with the Boston and Maine Railroad. There's a small roundhouse here, packed with detail. There are plenty of details in and around the yard, too. Trains are built here in Grand Junction, then dispatched to the passenger station at Back Bay, where they're staged for the operating session. Back Bay is Dave's representation of the famous South Station in Boston. Several passenger trains are dispatched west out of this yard in every operating session. The multiple lead tracks at the west end of Back Bay Station ultimately ladder down to a single track where they enter the tunnel just west of the station. As the train moves west, it reaches the station at Riverside. In a bit of creative Imagineering, Riverside is actually the backside of the West Mansfield station. Saundersville is a small stop on the line with just a passenger shelter, not a full-fledged station. It's a flag stop, so not every train will stop here. Middleborough is a passenger stop and is the westernmost spot for the Middleborough to Back Bay commuter service, which Dave runs on the railroad. This little Boston and Albany tank engine is the motive power for those commuter trains. After Middleborough, there are a lot of miles to travel before you reach West Mansfield. There are a couple of freight customers to service here at West Mansfield. Local crews always have plenty to do here during an operating session. Heading west out of Mansfield, it's only a few miles to Southbridge. There's only one small customer here, a coal dealer. West of Southbridge is Pemberton Hill, a long descending grade westbound into a hidden area which Dave calls State Line. 2 eastbound trains are staged here at the beginning of an operating session. Heading east out of State Line, it's a long, tough pull up Pemberton Hill. Helpers are often used eastbound on this hill, depending on the tonnage. Harmon anchors the west end of the railroad. Trains are also staged in Harmon before an operating session, providing a few more eastbound trains for the dispatcher to deal with. In building this railroad, Dave was influenced by some of the big names in the hobby.
Someone gave me a copy of Frank Ellison's book. It was kind of beat, but I read that cover to cover, I don't know how many times. And then I bought Lynn Westcott's book, and I started out with Open Grid. That seemed to be the easiest and for what I was doing. And eventually I did switch over to L-girder in some spots. So it's kind of got like a little bit of both, whatever worked for each situation. It's 1/2-inch plywood on top of that with Homosote on top of that. I used caulk road bed. I started with Gargrave's track, and at the time, Right Away, I believe, was the only player for turnouts, and I bought one oval. There is an oval that you can run continuously in the layout, and I started with that, and it had, I think, 4 turnouts on it that went to nowhere. But I just perfected how it worked and then put some sidings in. I could always run trains, at least in a loop, and slowly branched out from there. I used tortoise switch machines. All this stuff was kind of new, and there wasn't a lot of instructions on how to do it. You just had to kind of figure it out, and I figured I'd start small and, you know, just go from there, get at least something working properly, you know, before I tried to, you know, build the whole thing.
When Dave finally did get around to building the whole thing, he definitely got it right. Smooth running trains, good scenery and structures, and command control make this railroad a joy to operate.
just a great hobby. I mean, I just never run out of things to do. I'm on the forum a lot. You meet a lot of friends, all with the same interests. It's just such a diverse hobby. It's just, I mean, I never thought years ago I'd pick up an airbrush and weather trains, and I'm just enjoy doing those things. And I just like tinkering. I'm a mechanic by trade, and I like to see how things work or what I can do. Some things don't come out great. There's always a trash barrel, you know, if it just, you know, if it's that bad, or, you know, throw it away and try again. Scenery you can always remove if you don't like it. I've changed many of buildings out, early efforts that just, you know, I just don't consider up to par now. I just replace the buildings with something else, a different idea. You can always fix your mistakes. You know, something you don't like, you can always change it up. I've worked on the same layout for over 26 years now, and it'll never be done. There's always something to do, but I think you're better improving what you've got rather than, you know, and trying to finish it. Even, you know, it's considered finished, but it's really not. It never is.